Mayuresh Joshi, fund manager at Angel Broking with us. Mayuresh, I hope I didn't cause any disrespect to you by saying that it's difficult to put a complete understanding to the business of Sun Pharma Advanced Research. They've come out with a loss which is 30 times more than what they did, 36 crores versus 1 crore. What are your thoughts here?
Not at all, Neeraj. In fact, I don't understand the business model either. So largely, I think if you look at how their performance has been, it all depends upon the kind of molecule developments that they're going through and what kind of expected revenues are envisaged from those molecules. So largely, I think this is one space which is dependent and divergent on too many factors, and the kind of capex in terms of core R&D as well as the other capex required to run the business. I think it's very, very unlikely that you'll have consistent cash flows come off quarter after quarter. So yes, I think very difficult business to comprehend. So largely no comments on the performance for Spark.
What about Ujjivan Financial Services, though, Mayuresh? I mean, here's a stock that ran up substantially ahead of the numbers, and the numbers have come out. I think their NII has grown some 75%, bottom line has grown about 100%, NIM stable, provisioning has come off. What do you make of this? What would you do here? Because this whole MFI space has been very active.
Well, no, good set of numbers, and again I think the expectation was largely that the numbers will be better than what the street was anticipating. But largely I think one must really understand, Neeraj, that the stocks have run up, as you rightly pointed out. Secondly, I think within the space itself, the conversion to a small payments bank is itself going to ensure that the return ratios, both ROAs and ROEs that these companies are enjoying at this point of time, will get curtailed. Now the only flip side of the argument becomes how the NII growth is expected to shape up, and the NII growth is expected to be extremely robust, both in terms of advances picking up as well as the growth in their core AUMs. So largely as a long drawn out story, I think the growth prospects remain extremely encouraging for stocks within this space. But largely I think this was largely on expected lines, some money being taken off the table, but largely again one must understand that from a medium term perspective the return ratios will come down, and that will get offsetted in the longer run with increase in NIIs. Again, I think the multiples that these stocks were trading currently, I think a little bit above their fair estimates. Though if they correct further, I think that also gives an opportunity for the multiples to probably contract a little bit and give more breathing space in terms of long-term investors trying to get into the stock.
Well, look at the others. I mean, Bharat Financial Services has come off. I think it clicked in a high of 938, now above 900 still. So it's come off, but it's above $900. This is the 52-week move. The last 2-year move will also be an impressive chart. The last 3-year move will also be an impressive chart. I think there's something that this stock has done really well. So good going there. 902 and counting on Bharat Financial Services. It's a big mover in trade. So, this is the 2-year chart. As I said, will be impressive. So, $300 last 1 year, $600 last 2 year. It can't be $900, but I think it started moving from some 80 or 85. So it's almost done about $800 in a 3-year period, quite frankly. So, it's almost, the gains have been just stupendous for this one. Mayuresh, here is one pure play microfinance company, the Ujjivans and the Equitas of the world. See there, you could call me a soothsayer for all you know. I mean, 800 over a 3-year period, 600 over a 2-year period, 300 over 1-year period. It's just been astounding, the returns here. But Mayuresh, here's that pure play MFI versus everybody else moving into an SFB model as well. Actually, not everybody, but at least the known ones right now. What do you do with a SKS Microfinance? And I don't know if you track a Satin Credit Care. That one has had a blowout rally this week.
Now again, largely SKS has performed exceedingly well, and if you look at all their key parameters, they've actually ticked all the boxes. So whether that be capital adequacy, which stands about 23% at this point of time, you look at the kind of advances growth that the company has done, you look at what kind of securitization the company has embarked upon. And having said that, I think even the non-AP portfolio has grown significantly, both in terms of YOY performance and in the last few quarters as well. So largely, I think think no complaints in terms of how the operational performance has been. As a space, I think MFI is an industry that can grow leaps and bounds even from the current size that we are talking about. So there is ample scope for even players like a Bharat Financial to probably expand their balance sheet further. But it largely depends upon what kind of growth that they'll keep on posting quarter after quarter, because they're probably moving on to a very high base now. And again, I think the kind of NIMs and spreads that they enjoy, even though the cost of funds has come down, they're still expecting that to get maintained at higher elevated levels. So largely, I think the story looks very, very promising from a long-term perspective. The valuations might look stretched from an FY 17 perspective, but investors, in my opinion, holding on to the stock at lower levels should continue holding on to a stock like Bharat Financial.
We have important earnings lined up, Mayuresh, and both will be crucial to understand where we stand as far as the credit growth cycle goes, as also, the investment cycle in the economy. L&T and ICICI Bank. Do you think whatever they report can materially change the view on the macroeconomy as well as what these companies are doing?
From a macro perspective, Tanveer, again, nobody is really expecting credit growth to pick up before the second half of this fiscal. And even on the investment cycle, one really needs to understand the capex cycle. And the capex cycle largely is presuming that the second half should see some amount of green shoots. Having said that, individually, I think these stocks have performed exceedingly well along with the markets over the last few weeks. And again, I think expectations are quite high, both in terms of delivery, specifically for a company like L&T, what they probably do with their E&C segment, because a whole host of orders that they've received in the second half of FY 15, I think that pipeline of orders starts coming through. And if that execution is really good, I think the EBIT margins for that segment should hold up. The hydrocarbons probably has struggled for the better part of FY 15, but you saw signs of revival with EBIT losses cut down. The EBIT margins came to much manageable levels, though in negative terrain, but at least they showed signs of recovery happening on that front. So everything basically hinges on the kind of order wins, the kind of execution that these guys are able to do, and the kind of margins that they will sustain. Similarly for ICICI Bank, I think we're still expecting a very soft quarter this time around, not expecting huge growth in terms of NII. And even on the non-interest income component, I think the corporate fee structure is going to be a little bit soft. So I think you're not going to see a huge spike up happening on the non-interest component. What really will boil down to ICICI's numbers will be the asset quality. The kind of asset book that they're probably looking at, which might turn bad around 54,500 crores. I think that is one important aspect to be watched out for. Similarly, I think what happens with 525 and the kind of elevated credit costs in the system. So again, expecting a sluggish set of numbers to come through from ICICI Bank. Valuations probably again around 1.4, 1.5 times price to book. But one really needs to understand how the numbers are coming through and the management commentary thereof.
Eicher Motors though, yes, that stock is dancing. My producer was just talking about a dance, 22458. Investors in this are dancing too, because this one has had such a big move in today's session. And let's just see what Hero MotoCorp is up to, because in the morning when Eicher Motors started, the market cap was just about 9% away from Hero MotoCorp's market cap. If Hero is still flat, then another 3% odd, and Eicher Motors will overtake Hero MotoCorp's market cap. Just bring up Hero MotoCorp as well for the benefit of our viewers. This one is up 1374, 6.5%. Hero MotoCorp is flat. So yeah, wait maybe a day or two, and you could well have the very interesting data point out there. But Eicher Motors, clearly the star of the trading day right now. Siddharth Bhamre, for somebody who's gone long into Eicher ahead of results yesterday, the stock shot up around 3-4% in trade, another 6%. So that's about 10% if you entered into this trade sometime noon yesterday. What would you do now?
I guess there are a lot of people who have missed out on this rather than people who have gone long, because there was a lot of negativity pertaining to stock when it was correcting last series. Anyways, stock is clearly in overbought zone. I won't go long. If somebody has gone long, I think I was not expecting stock price to go about 21,500, and above that it has gone 1,000. It's an overbought condition. Stay light is what my recommendation would be. Certainly I'm not suggesting to go short even if it's an overbought zone.
Okay, Kunal, What are your thoughts? Would you ride the ride as we call it? It's now 6.5% up.
Yes, Neeraj, I think for anyone who's entering fresh on Eicher Motor at this point of time, I think it's not advisable. Clearly, because of the fact that the stock is almost up 13.5–14% this week, and it's on back of good results. So I think the event has also passed out. So you may generally see some sort of profit booking happening. But I think yes, I think in terms of the longer term structure for Eicher Motors, it's for many of these stocks which have been consolidating for the last 1.5 year from 2015. It's a good sign that these stocks are coming out of their longer term consolidation. So yes, from a long term perspective, I would advise a hold. But from a fresh entry point, I think it's not the right time.
Okay, what else? Last 15 minutes of trade left, or last 17 minutes of trade left. Let's try and pick up some active stocks in trade. In a bit, we'll get in what dealing rooms are recommending in the session today. I think Prime Focus is doing well. But, the stock that stands out for me personally is AkzoNobel. Look at that move, 1676 from 1625. Yesterday, it was sub 1600. This is Prime Focus, of course. Now let's get in AkzoNobel. That's the one that has really gotten me excited because it went up about 6% in trade yesterday. And it's up another 4% in trade today. Paint companies are high, yes, but AkzoNobel is certainly charting a course of its own, because not that all the other paint companies are moving in such ferocity today, but this one certainly moving up, and moving up very, very strongly. I think CK had a buy call on this. I don't know if the others did or no. Kunal, did you have a buy call here yesterday?
No.
Achha, you didn't. Ashish Chaturmota, if somebody, it's not a very liquid stock, let's face it, compared to some of the others. But AkzoNobel has been moving up the last couple of days. What do you do now? Would you book profits here?
See, it's at an all-time high territory, and this all-time high has come after a very strong consolidation. Now, if you look at last two trading sessions, we have seen a very strong volumes in comparison to the last 3-4 months. Definitely, it is illiquid, but if you look at last 3-4 months data, clearly last 2 days volume is very, very strong. And this strong volumes coming at an all-time high definitely gives me a signal that this stock has a potential to move further up. I'll not be surprised to see this stock crossing 1900, 2000 kind of levels in coming days. The only good thing is, the only thing which one has to take care is that downside, till the stock doesn't breaches 1550, they should ride the trend, and once the stock breaches 1550, that should be the trailing stop loss for holding the long positions.
Mayuresh, paint them green, all of them. They're all doing well. AkzoNobel probably more so, but Asian Paints, Berger, etc., all of them have been stars ever since the Asian Paint numbers came out. I think the other paint companies too have probably not done that badly. As I said, today may be a different day. Berger Paints and a few others. Shalimar, I think, was up in the session today as well. But there's some massive moves that have happened in the paint companies. And then, of course, we'll talk about Page Industries and a few other stocks as well. But Mayuresh, firstly, the paint companies. What would you be doing here?
No, again, I think, Neeraj, I think 2-3 factors working in favor of them, which are getting clearly reflected in the numbers thrown out. So A, I think the input cost deflation has clearly worked in favor of them, with EBITDA margin stabilizing and improving for a whole host of paint companies. The crude oil derivatives, with the crude prices again staying at the levels that they are expected to remain benign. So clearly, I think raw material cost input deflationary trends are helping paint companies. Second, I think the kind of volume growth that you're witnessing is expected to sustain, in my opinion, because if you get good monsoons and the 7th Pay Commission recommendations which are expected soon, the kind of no repainting demand, if I may call it, over the last 2 years that we had witnessed, I think you'll suddenly see spurt happening on that front, along with urban consumption actually staying afloat. So in that sense itself, I think the volume should hold up, which will clearly give the operating leverage benefits to the paint companies. Even if one really assumes that if input costs go up over the next few quarters, it's the leverage benefit in terms of volumes going up, and at the same time, I think the industrial stroke auto demand, respectively, for paint companies remaining stable for the better part of the next year, I think that should ensure that the margins probably sustain at higher levels. So clearly, I think paint companies is something that I've been optimistic about for the past few quarters. I remain optimistic on them over the next few quarters as well.
Okay, Mayuresh, stay on with us. Let's quickly go across to our research desk and get a perspective on what dealers are talking about in the last 10 minutes of trade, a little over that left. Darshan and Yatin have been working their phones and get us a quick perspective, actually, snapshot. Darshan, I'll start off with you. And is the talk really about ICICI Bank and L&T?
See, obviously the numbers will come out after market hours anytime, but the general trend on ICICI is that the numbers probably will be weak, especially there could be some issues as far as asset quality is concerned. The counter last time I checked was trading down, it's almost down 1% in trade. So ICICI is something that dealers are indicating that the position that the numbers probably will be weak. IPCA Labs is very surprising. Today it's up almost 3 to 4%. There were multiple block deals today. At least if you look at the number of block deals in shares, almost more than 10 lakh shares have been traded today in multiple block deals. So there is definitely something cooking here. We've been talking about this counter, and the dealing room buzz is that some marquee HNIs could be the buyers in today's trade. And finally, Container Corp is something that dealers are indicating that some bit of positions are being taken across dealing rooms on the anticipation that probably GST will be passed very, very soon.
Yes, that's the hope and expectation too. Thanks, Darshan, for that. Yatin, come to you. What is it that you're picking from your sources?
L&T is one stock wherein, dealers are indicating that the earnings could miss the estimate significantly. Of course, L&T has made a presentation to the analysts saying that there could be some adjustments relating to Ind AS, which is the new accounting standard. So watch out for L&T, as we have a lot of short positions getting built in this counter. And do watch out for Pidilite as well. The company has reported a dismal set of first quarter earnings versus the analyst expectations, and probably from here on also analysts are expecting that there could be some further downside. The margin miss was almost 200 basis points, and on the profit fronts also thing did not work out. Revenues also was a miss. So on all counts, Pidilite disappointed the street with earnings. So that is one stock which is witnessing some short built up again. And in the mid-cap space, do watch out for steel strip wheels. That is one stock wherein HNIs have been accumulating the stock, and HNIs are also indicating that there could be a short-term 20 to 25% upside in the stock.
Okay, we'll watch out for these. Thanks a lot, both of you, for joining us and giving us that perspective. Pidilite, that's a 38,000 crore market cap, which is correcting in the session today, now down about 3%, so not good going. Is it 320? Yes, almost 320. Just 2 or 3 stocks that I want to mark. One of them is IIFL Holdings. The numbers weren't as good as what maybe a Motilal Oswal reported, but the stock is up 7%, now trading at fresh highs for itself. So IIFL Holdings is doing very, very well. Gujarat Alkalis is ending not necessarily at the high point of the day, but I think on a closing basis at fresh 52-week highs for Gujarat Alkalis as well. So decent enough show there. And I think Kunal Bothra was speaking about Jet Airways. It's at 622, and I reckon Jet Airways is also closing in at the day's high. So good going for that stock as well. Just get up Jet Airways for our viewers. By the way, some earnings, Vedanta as well, consolidated PAT 615 crores versus APOL of 500 crores. So that's the update on Vedanta. I think it more or less will now mirror, the two of them will mirror what they do because of that swap or otherwise. So Vedanta at 164, down 3%. Crude has had a horrible week, this one. KN India isn't in the best of shapes as well. I don't know what it's doing in today's session, but otherwise, with crude falling off a bit, I think KN India too probably would be having a slightly iffy day today. Vedanta correcting more. KN will come up on your screen as well. Just about okay. Anyways, closing strategies there on your screen. KN is down about 1.5%. Closing strategies. Kunal, to you first. Your top closing strategy.
Well, Neeraj, 2 stocks which I had recommended out of Jet Airways and Bata India. I would continue to go long on Bata India. I think when I recommend the stock was at below 600, it's now at 607, 610. So probably I would up my target to 625, and from the previous stoppers of 582, I would now trail it to at least 592.
Okay, thanks for that, Kunal. Siddharth, your strategy?
Well, very few stocks are showing decisive built up with price action. And M&M, which I mentioned, is one of them. So my top closing strategy would be M&M, and I'm expecting it to give decent returns from current levels.
Okay. Mahindra and Mahindra, bring up that stock. That is Siddharth Bhamre's top closing strategy. Ashish Chaturmota, what about you? Your top closing call?
So I think Lupin is what we have recommended, and it looks very strong, closing near day's high, and I think stock has a potential to cross 1800 mark. The one more bet what I would like to add would be Page Industries. Now, if you look at the open interest addition of 10%, price has moved almost 5%, clearly indicating longs have started building up. So I think with a stop loss of 14,150, one can initiate a long, keeping a target of 15,300 levels.
Siddharth, any thoughts here? Page?
No, not a stock which I closely track, Neeraj, sorry.
Mayuresh, what about you? Page Industries?
Now again, Neeraj, I think one really needs to understand how the numbers are panning out, and valuations have always remained extremely high for a stock like Page Industries. You also need to understand the kind of environment in terms of both input costs as well as competition that the company is going through. And though the long-term prospects seem very, very promising, I think it's the numbers that will do the talking from a medium-term perspective. So I think let the numbers probably come out and then we'll probably take a call on the stock.
Okay, so Mayuresh, in which case, what are the stocks that you have been bullish on recently? I mean, we have about 50% of the earnings season over. Anything that has stood out for you as a stock, as a theme? Large cap, mid cap?
So largely again, Neeraj, I think with the kind of run-up that we've seen, a whole host of sectors probably are running at very high valuations. But again, I think selectively, the private financials is something that I'll still continue to prefer, though the only caveat here is that one really needs to look at least 15 to 18 months as a time horizon in terms of meaningful returns. Select consumer staples, durables, FMCG companies, paint stocks should do well. If GST probably comes through, my own sense is that over the next 2 years, because the unorganized pie is so huge, players within the plywood space, the ceramic space, the footwear space, selectively can do really well. So I think some of the themes is something that I'm still very, very optimistic about, as well as the EPC theme. I think the EPC theme is something that I've liked. With the kind of road wins, the road orders that are expected to come through over the next few quarters, the margins should hold up, the execution should improve, the working capital constraint should come down, and that should reflect very positively on their cash flows and their return ratios.
Okay. AkzoNobel is at 1690, big move, and that continues. Then there is PNG, which at 6645 is packing serious punch. I think from the levels that it was, Procter & Gamble has moved up quite a bit. So pull up that one also for our viewers. Yes, 3.5% moving, trading at the high point of the day. Sundaram Finance, after its numbers, has corrected a lot. The numbers were understandably weak as well. So not surprised there, just that it's come off. So down about 3%. Last but not the least, IFL Holdings continues to rise and shine, now at 271. So trading close to the high point of the day. I think brokerages today haven't had a bad day. Motilal Oswal too, the last time I saw, was marginally in the green. But IFL Holding is doing, this is about 2% higher. IFL Holding is closing in at the high point of the day. So very quick thoughts, Kunal Bothra. If you had existing longs in IIFL Holdings and Eicher Motors, two stocks which are ending at the day's highs, would you carry them home?
For IIFL Holdings, yes. I think even though it's a slightly thinly traded stock, compared to the last 1 month or 2 months of average, when the price moves, today is showing signs that it's a start of a fresh trend. So I think if I have to carry longs, I would carry longs for IIFL Holdings.
Not for Eicher Motors.
Eicher Motors, as I said, this is a very sharp move in the last 2 days. I think it's more prudent to take out profits over here. Wait for some corrections, because I think I think eventually you will get a chance over the next couple of weeks of a dip.
Okay, just very quickly, Kunal, ICICI Bank has not broken the 260 mark. If you had initiated shorts, would you carry them home or would you square your positions?
Well, I would square my position, Neeraj. I think I would wait for a confirmation of a break below 260. I think till the time it doesn't do that, since it's not done it, so I would not want to carry my shorts.
Siddharth, what about your existing positions into ICICI Bank?
Well, I've formed a strategy to play for the results. So I would certainly go long with that synthetic long strategy which I mentioned about selling 250 put and 270 buying 270 calls. So I'm going long with that strategy.
Just before we start wrapping up, aside of Eicher, I think Tanveer was speaking at length about Adani Ports and Zee Entertainment. Both the stocks are ending very, very strong. Quick thoughts out here, Kunal. What would you do with these two? Would you carry home the longs if you had them?
Yes, for Adani Ports, as I said, it's nearing a very key resistance. I think the 200-day moving average, which is exactly at 233, 234 for the stock. So I would probably book my profits here, wait for a couple of days, If the stock persists, and trades above the 200 moving average, even start of next week, then I would probably expect a fresh trend to begin.
Okay, let's start wrapping up the markets. And you have Eicher Motors, which is the top gainer of the session. So 6% higher on this one, continues to hold out. And what a dream run really for Eicher Motors. It has been down from 18,000, which was a sell-off on account of promoter offloading some stake. That's the kind of level that the stock tested. From there, it's a good comeback and a strong show on earnings, which has led the stock higher. Adani Port up 3%, Z Entertainment up also 3%. This one has been one of the top gainers in this week, almost 7% over the last 5 sessions. Lupin, Tata Power are holding out. There's Kotak Bank, which is looking good. BPCL is up about 1.5%. Aurobindo also chugging along well, so about 1.5% gain there. Tata Steel, Cipla, some of the other key gainers. But really, the day belongs to 3 stocks. It's Adani Port, Z Entertainment, and of course, the top gainer, Eicher Motors. Among losers, it's really ICICI Bank ahead of earnings. You're seeing the stock being sluggish. Bharti Airtel seeing some profit taking. And L&T also ahead of numbers. But many believe that 1500 is a good attractive zone, a good buy point for L&T. So if the numbers kind of bring it back or bring it down to that level, then perhaps the stock could see limited downside, but really more potential on the upside going forward, unless there's a negative surprise in the earnings, which nobody really envisages as of now. Then there's Tata Motors, DVR, there's Bharti Infratel, and Bank of Baroda also closes low about 2%. The financials have been weaker today, but I think the focus is squarely on ICICI Bank as they come out with their numbers in a bit.
Yeah, so financials may be weak in the large cap space. In the broader end of the spectrum, stocks like IIFL, Motilal Oswal and the others are holding out fairly okay. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there. In fact, a dichotomy per se within the mid caps and the large caps as well, because the CNX mid cap index is still up over 0.5%. The market breadth may have worsened, but the broader end of the spectrum seems to be doing okay. Gujarat Alkali on the Nifty 500 is amongst the top performers, 13% higher, good gains there, decent volumes too, good performance in the quarter. IIFL Holdings ends at fresh 52-week highs for itself, 271 or 272, good going there. DCB Bank has had a move today, 6.5% higher. Care Ratings about 6.5% higher. Not bad going there. In the sugar space, so Bannari, Balrampur, Renuka, all of them moving up in trade. By the way, watch out for Delta Corp as well. That stock, I think ahead of the verdict, down about the results, up about 5% in trade. Kansai Nerolac, Akzo Nobel from the paint space, All Cargo from the logistics space are also ending fairly well for themselves. Just see if there are some losers. JP Associates, I think some talk about how they're not honoring a debt commitment, and that stock is down 8.5%. KPIT has lost some sheen, down 5%. Hexaware, I think the quarter was okay, down about 4% in trade. Market Alliance corrects after a bit, and United is down about 3.5% at 2450. Mahindra Holidays, after that slightly tepid quarter, is also soft in trade. Nevertheless, final thoughts from our experts. Mayuresh, two concept stocks. One is Mahindra Holidays, practically no peers. The other one is United Spirits, and practically no peer of its size. What do you do here?
Now again, I think Mahindra Holidays has to be looked in perspective of how the utilization levels are expected to pick up for the company. And largely, again, it's going to be a very slow and a gradual recovery process for this company. So again, I think one really needs to wait and watch, because the numbers are going to be sluggish, at least for the next few quarters. Unfortunately, I don't track United Spirits, Neeraj.
Fair call. Mayuresh, we'll let you go at that note. Thanks so much for taking the time out and joining us and giving us that perspective. Let's get in closing trading thoughts from our experts. Siddharth Bhamre, first day of the new series. How has it stood out for you?
Well, in